Today we review another Christian apocalypse movie, Saving Our Church. The movie opens with youthful, energetic pastor, Rhodesia Church, in the pulpit telling the parable of the foolish virgins. He also points out that homosexuals are not virgins. He relates in loving detail the fate of homosexuals and deviants in the coming tribulations. He reassures the members of the church they will all be raptured together. We have nothing to fear. We are the God-fearing. We are not the deviant art. We are the good, the just, the moral, the blessed. Look at how God smites the evildoers with AIDS and throws the deviants into prison, safely locked away from decent people. The days are growing short. Let us pray to resist this evil. It switches to an outside shot of the church and the departing congregation. The shot includes the church sign which reads as Church of Rome, New York. Rhodesia visits with members of the church on the steps. Shortly thereafter he departs to attend a prayer brunch. The brunch honors their former congressman and now president-elect Nicholas Tuffles. We get our introduction to the next major cast member, Elizabeth Becky Krasny. Becky is a newsreader from PBNN, based in Chicago. Most of the people are local politicians, clergy, and other city boosters. They recall past adventures with Tuffles as they say goodbye and congratulations. A podium is set up at the head table. The film watches various speakers while panning over the chit-chat and schmoozing in the room. At one point Rhodesia Church is speaking, pretty much repeating his earlier sermon, with an additional demand to strengthen traditional Christian values against degeneracy and useless parasites on society. Tuffles takes the podium and delivers the usual political speech of bland passion. He ends with warning about the lying press while thanking Becky for being part of the responsible press. As the brunch ends we see Tuffles and Becky together. They appear closer than just a newswoman and a subject, but the movie never goes further into this. A montage of Tuffles preparing his administration is shown behind Becky reporting. President-elect Tuffles met with the leadership of the next Congress to discuss candidates for the cabinet. Later he met a delegation of religious leaders. The president-elect promised again to make rapid progress to return decency to America. Controversy has arisen in Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, and a handful of other states over ballot irregularities, leading some to question Nicholas Tuffles' election. The view changed to a map of Israel. Violence broke out at an illegal wedding in Nazareth when an Arab attempted to marry a Christian Palestinian woman. A number of infant boys were killed in the riot. More on this story as it develops. The movie fades out and fades back into another broadcast. Becky reads, on the eve of the presidential inauguration, these are the top stories. Senate Majority Leader Dortoka denounced claims of election irregularities as dead-enders attempting a coup against the lawful president. Arabs from Nazareth are marching to Tel Aviv after they were stopped while attempting an illegal marriage. Israeli authorities were forced to kill potential terrorists. Israel is setting up roadblocks in the pass of Mount Carmel to end the protest march. The camera pulls out through a television screen into a room with Tuffles, Rhodesia Church, and others. Rhodesia Church has become a spiritual advisor to Nicholas Tuffles. We can't let those Arab terrorists threaten Israel. Do not worry, Rhodesia. Jerusalem's future is very important to me. They continue talking about predictions of stormy weather for the inauguration ceremony. The next day begins with stormy skies and crowds with umbrellas and raincoats gathering for the ceremony. But we see a few disquieting signs, such as abandoned cars being towed off and empty seats in the reviewing stand. The people are cheering at every opportunity, but from time to time we see people waiting and worrying for an answer to their phone calls. Becky is working the crowd with most chanting return decency to America. One woman says she doesn't understand why her daughter won't answer. She knows her daughter is opposed to Tuffles, but she can't believe she would be so petty. Tuffles, the Chief Justice, and those around him, including Rhodesia Church, stand to take the oath of office. At that moment a thunderclap echoes overhead and a downpour pelts the crowd. Tuffles, safe under the sheltering roof of the stand, shrugs then calmly takes the oath of office. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and will to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Tuffle's gives his speech, ending with "And I return decency to this great nation, rewarding degenerates with the fate they so richly deserve. I will make this a country where Christians are once again safe in the coming tribulations." Rhodesia Church takes the podium thanking Tuffle's for his brave words and muscular Christianity. He pauses when he sees an aide pushing through the crowd. The aide makes his way to the new president to whisper in his ear. Tuffle's nods. He stands and takes the podium. "I regret I must leave this celebration early. An earthquake has hit the Mississippi Valley. Nashville, St. Louis, and other cities have been damaged, but to an as yet unknown extent. I asked the cabinet and agency heads to return to work to immediately coordinate relief operations." He adds a hint of a smile. "Shortest honeymoon ever." The Congress members decide to forego further events and return to the Capitol for immediate session. The celebration ends abruptly with the crowd milling around, their building excitement left and released and frustrated, and soaking wet by spasms of thunder showers. We see scenes of devastation in the Mississippi Valley. It was a major rupture on the New Madrid Fault at 7.1. It didn't look like a single building was still standing in Huntsville. Memphis had sunk into the mud, and Nashville and St. Louis were burning. Illinois and Indiana had been spared, but little else. The scenes shift to the newsroom background as Becky Krasny reports on the earthquake and the response. She praises Tuffle's decisive actions and his heroism of putting aside inaugural lunches and balls to focus on the seismic rupture. Also in the news are reports of hundreds or thousands of missing persons across the country overnight. The protest march from Nazareth has been stopped at the foot of Mount Carmel. Rhodesia Church returns to Rome and his church. At the Sunday service, the congregation verifies none of their members have gone missing. He tells them to remain strong as the end approaches. He also explains he has made friends with President Tuffle's implying Rhodesia has the influence to push the church's agenda into law. Becky arrives in Rome. She is collecting interviews about Tuffle's time as a congressman from Rome. She had met Rhodesia Church a few times after the election, but this is the first time she has been with him for an extended time. She jokingly refers to him as the power behind the throne and invites him for dinner. "I was hoping to meet your lovely wife, Mr. Church. Call me Rhodesia, Elizabeth. She had a sudden upset stomach and had to stay home." "It's just Becky. That's a shame. By the way, I was hoping to meet the power behind the throne." Becky smiles broadly. "I'm not sure I would call myself that." Becky touches Rhodesia's hand. "You've come up in the world pretty quick." "Yeah, well," Rhodesia blushes. "What happened to those terrorists in Israel?" Becky leans back. "They've been keeping it quiet to avoid more troubles. They rushed the roadblock across the mountain pass. Israel killed all of them." "Good." Becky nods. "I'm glad to see you're one of us." "One of who?" "Nothing. Did anyone you know disappear?" "No." "Do you know what happened?" "Nothing specific. The best guess so far is they have snuck off to form insurrection cells to fight against Tuffle's. Some people just can't accept the might of righteousness. It's causing some problems, this social rupture, in some ways even worse than the New Madrid seismic rupture, but the president is getting the country running again. Good for him. It helps knowing he is in charge. Praise be to him. The waiter brings their food, and they turn their attention to that. Over the next few weeks, the news of the deaths of the Nazareth protesters does leak out. This sparks the usual rioting of Palestinians. Hezbollah threatens to send rockets into Israel. There's a fade-in of an aerial shot over the Kaaba in Mecca with the pilgrims swirling around and the sound of people chanting. Then a brief flash fills the frame. The camera tilts up to show a dimming fireball from within a mushroom cloud. The camera lingers on it to sound of "This is really serious music." The film cuts to a conference presided by Tuffle's of Israelis in skullcaps, Arabs in keffiyehs, and Europeans in tireless three-piece suits. Becky's voiceover explains, following the tragedy in Mecca, President Tuffles called representatives from around the world to respond to this Iranian outrage. President Tuffles announced the isotopes proved the bomb material came from an Iranian reactor. They made a suitcase nuke given to a Palestinian pretending to be a pilgrim. The nuke set off a gamma ray detector on the outskirts of Mecca. The perpetrator panicked and set off the bomb. Any Arab sympathy for Palestinians has immediately evaporated. Israel and Arabs have united to crush Iran, Palestine, and all the Iran's allies in the Middle East. The conference announces the formation of the Alliance of Righteous Might, or to deal with Iran. Anxious to protect its installations in Syria, Russia joins to overthrow the government of Syria. In return for recognizing Uyghurs as Iranian allies, China also joins North and South America as well, Europe and Japan join One by one, countries in Asia and Africa either join or become its targets. We see a chauffeured Mercedes-Benz stopped with a flat tire at the side of a street in Rome. A black man in a white shirt and blue jeans offers the driver help.
Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz?
The window rolls down, revealing Rhodesia Church. He tells the stranger they don't need his help. I offer direction to the lost. The stranger answers, "We aren't lost. We don't need any directions." Becky's face briefly appears next to Rhodesia before returning to the darkness of the car's interior with dismay. "As you wish." The stranger taps the toe of his shoe on the sidewalk. He then disappears into the night. The driver finishes changing the tire. As the Mercedes continues, we watch Becky and Rhodesia Church discuss the meeting they are traveling to. Rhodesia has been appointed to chair Tuffles' Presidential Library Committee. "We found a nice property along the old portage, sort of a parting of the waters. There's a hill or old Indian mound on the lot. We're thinking of putting a path from the library building up the hill. There we'll put up pillars with signs attached listing his accomplishments." That sounds inspiring. I hope so. We want to show what a good Christian can accomplish in this world. I don't think congratulations are premature. Becky produces a bottle of champagne and pours a glass for Rhodesia and herself. His cell phone rings. It's Tuffles requesting a consultation. Rhodesia Church redirects the driver to the airport where the president has sent a plane. Becky also gets a call. She explains a volcano in Alaska has woken up. I have to return to Chicago to report it. We next see Rhodesia Church and Tuffles in the Oval Office. In the background on a television is Becky reporting the volcano and earthquake in Alaska, and shoreline evacuations in Hawaii against the oncoming tsunami. Tuffles hands Rhodesia Church a book. "This was sent to me. It's about the King James Bible. Some of the verses are referring to customs that have become obscure with time. For example, the passage about turning the other cheek wasn't about humility. Rather, the way it is described, it's a way of challenging the offender to a duel. Naturally, the sinner backs down in the face of righteous might." Also, it explains that in Luke, Jesus wants to arm all the disciples, but they don't have enough money because Judas, their treasurer, has stolen it. That leaves Jesus unprepared to defend himself when the Romans arrest him. This sounds like an important book. I've finished it. You can have this copy. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll include it in my next sermon. Tuffles smiles. "I am pleased in what you have become. You're like a son to me." Tuffles shakes Rhodesia Church's hand and then, paternally, kisses Rhodesia's forehead. He hands Rhodesia a purple plastic wristband with gold lettering. "I'm creating a new world," he reads. "I asked you here to write a prayer for Alaska, all this turmoil even as the world is achieving peace." "I heard we had marched into Tehran." "Yes, and the navies are bombarding resistant villages in Indonesia. It's good seeing the world come together against a common enemy." Also, 2 leftist justices died in hit-and-run accidents. Senator Dortoka assures me there will be no problems approving my appointments. At last the Supreme Court will stop blocking the return of decency to America. We also have reports of white people in the Sahara Desert. I think these might be terrorist training camps for the people who disappeared during the social rupture. Good luck and good speed, Mr. President. Looking at my watch, I saw the movie was finally ending. I was expecting scenes of Christians marching arm in arm, stamping out degenerates as they brought their version of decency to the world. Instead, it ended abstractly with bright lights descending on cities to the wailing of air raid sirens. Whatever. Would I recommend this movie? Maybe as an emetic after you've swallowed something disgusting, such as Christian apocalypse porn. The writing is bad, the directing is bad, the production values are nowhere. As you can see, the CGI is cartoonish. Just say no to saving our church.